Hey everybody, I'm AdamHarry from BoLS, and today we are taking a quick overview of the brand new Death Battletome for the Ossiarch Bonereapers for the Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I am super pumped about this one. I'm actually starting this army fresh, brand new. Now that we have the Battletome, I've got my first crack at Feast of Bones, which is the new box set. I've already started building those models, and I cannot wait to get this army on the tabletop. That said, we're going to go pretty quick. We're going to do, again, this is an overview. This isn't going to be looking at every single page, but we're going to flip through it pretty quickly and hit some of the highlights and show off some of the differences for some of the war scrolls you might recognize. So they do have some cool rules. They play differently than most of the armies in Age of Sigmar. They have their own unique mechanics, and we'll talk about those as well. So, the Bonereapers. I am super jazzed. Here we go, folks. Diving in, get a little background right there. We get the table of contents. Here's what you can expect in the Ossiarch Bonereaper booklet here. I'm a little excited. Obviously, it's going to go through what the bone tithe is and all that. There's a lot of lore, a lot of background here. Actually, it goes till about going through all the units and everything like that. So it's about 50 pages of lore. Then we get into kind of the paint section, things like that, and then there's another 40 pages-ish of rules for the different units. There are, I want to say, 12 new kits coming out with the Ossiarch Bonereapers, and a lot of those are actually double kits too, so pretty cool stuff. One thing I do want to point out real quickly too is I want to point out this picture, specifically this section here. Looking at this picture, it's clear to me, and also this thing up top here, it's clear to me that GW might be sitting on a new terrain kit for the Ossiarch Bonereapers. I can't confirm this, but this picture, this fortification thing shows up a couple of different times, and the reason I'm calling it out is because these sections back here, with the parapets and the everything like that, they look a little bit too, what's the word? Too similarly. They look too uniform. They're too, I don't want to say repetitive, that's a negative connotation, but just these parapets right in there, they're too similar. The cracks on them, the spacing of the bones, the placement of the spears up top, the sharp points just make me think that they're repeated too many times to be one-offs. Plus they have these weird things here, these little there's better shots of them down here. Whatever these things here are, these weird obelisks that are kind of floating, these pyramids that are floating, are really cool. Plus, there's this big gate thing, which is a super rad skull thing with skulls coming out of it, spirit bones and stuff. It's just really cool. It's a gate thing back behind him. Man, if this is a standalone kit that the crazy modelers at GW built, hat tip to you guys. That thing is awesome looking. I want one. So I hope that it comes out eventually as its own kit. But for now, just wanted to call that out. Moving on from here, again, we get into the lore of the Bonereapers. Fun fact, we're going to go a little down story time here. Fun fact about the Bonereapers, they were actually created way back in the Age of Myth, maybe even before that, when Sigmar and Nagash were kind of frenemies. They worked together to fight chaos, but even before that, Nagash actually lent, when the Mortal Realms were created, Nagash actually lent the undead skeletons to Sigmar to build cities, and while they were building cities above ground, they were also constructing catacombs below these cities. So deep beneath the ground, they were building these kind of vault-type areas. Not storm vaults, but necropolises under these cities. And inside of these cities were where Nagash was actually storing the Ossiarch Bonereapers. So that's how they're able to just kind of show up all of a sudden, to us anyway. It goes into the history of the Tithes of Bone and how this all worked. Again, at some point, Nagash realized when Shaiish, the realm of the dead, was being populated by living creatures that Sigmar had actually helped to, say, colonize the area, Nagash realized that if he just went out and killed everything, then if he killed all of life, then his power would be finite. He would be capped at that point. But if he harvested the living, like a farmer harvests crops, or how a rancher cycles through their herds, if he did it correctly, he could grow his power indefinitely if he was playing the long game. And of course, this is Nagash. That's what he does. So he decided to come up with this whole bone tithe thing, where he basically culls populations down, but doesn't destroy them entirely, so that they can provide more souls and provide more bone and provide more raw materials for him. Because if he wiped everything out, if his skeletal warriors were crushed and ground to grave sand or whatever, they were ground to dust, then he wouldn't have any loyalist stuff anymore. So he makes up this thing with them, with the living cities, to make this bone tithe. So that's kind of where this whole stuff goes. It goes in a bit more detail. It introduced the great warrior Catacross as well, and it talks about his whole backstory. He started off as a mortal in the mortal realms. He joined the military, rose through the ranks in his homelands, fought off chaos. He actually died fighting off the Beastmen. He did essentially what amounted to a lone charge on a chariot against a Gorgon, and while he drove his weapon through the heart of the Gorgon managed to have enough life left in it to rip him to shreds. So he comes back to unlife in the realm of Shyish in Ossia, and strangely enough, the dead still serve in the military in Ossia. So Ossia is this land where hard work is its own reward, and people go there that just enjoy hard work, and he fit right in. He doesn't have any kind of ambition to be more than just an awesome fighter in general. He's kind of obsessed with war. He doesn't want to rule. He just wants to conquer, if that makes any sense. So he goes off and he joins the Ossian, the undead military as well, rises through the ranks in that. And actually, when Nagash comes back to kind of absorb all of these different lands of underworlds, these different underworld lands that where different cultures and religions kind of have their own underworld, when Nagash comes into Shyish to kind of conquer everything, the Ossians actually put up quite a fight. And they managed to survive for so long that it actually draws Nagash's attention. And he's like, what is going on? These guys are really good. I'm going to go check them out. He goes over and he actually runs into Keratos as well. And I'm trying to find the exact passage here. But he runs into him and he says, I'll make a deal with you, Nagash. If you it's over here. If you ally with me, if you make me your general of war, then I'll serve you, and you spare my lands, essentially. And Nagash is like, I'm actually going to consider this, and he does it. So Nagash actually not only meets with this general, he accepts the offer. He puts him in charge of his army so that Nagash can run off and do other stuff, and then this guy goes out and conquers. And he kicks a lot of butt along the way. He becomes the Mortarch of the Necropolis. He's pretty awesome. And then we get into the Age of Chaos. When this happens, this is when Chaos is resurgent and Chaos attacks all the realms. This is when the fallout happens with the Pantheon, the Grand Alliance between Sigmar and the other gods, essentially. And at the Battle of the Allgates, where Nagash is supposed to come and help, he stays behind in Shyish to defend it. This, of course, ticks off Sigmar. Sigmar charges after Nagash into Shyish, thus losing the all points to Chaos, but ravaging through the realms of Shyish. And, of course, Nagash is on the fallback here, trying to keep his own power. He's more concerned about that. Sigmar's on a tear, kicking a lot of butt. He actually runs into Keratos here, and he goes toe-to-toe with him. Catacross, excuse me. He goes toe-to-toe with Catacross. I always get the T and the R mixed up. Dyslexia. He goes into a battle with him, Catacross versus Sigmar, and while he does have quite a bit of martial prowess, he's still no match for the God King that is Sigmar, especially when he's angry, and he ends up smashing through and just, he's got Golem Raz. He wrecks him. He holds him up for a long time, but he still gets wrecked by him, and that shatters his soul. But instead of letting his soul go and even turning him into a Stormcast Eternal, Sigmar actually imprisons him beneath the battle site, which was at the shores of Lake Lethis. And if you're familiar with Soul War, you know that this whole thing happened with Lady Oleander versus the Celestant Prime there. And that battle at Lake Lethis is what freed Catacross. So that was the big, if you remember that story, that was the big surge of power that left the Storm Vault there. I'm not going to go into all that, but that's where Catacross is from. And he's kind of, he's been around in the prehistory, kind of retcon, but he's been around in the prehistory. He was not from the old world. He was post-old world, new hero, died, became undead, became a leader of the undead, was smited by Sigmar and locked away for time immemorial, and then brought back once the Storm Vaults were discovered, and now he is in charge of the Ossiarch Bonereapers once again. So pretty cool stuff. That's a quick summary. There's a lot more to it. Definitely check it out when you get a chance. We get this really cool map with his the lands of Dust and Bone, and it kind of shows you the Prime Innerlands, which is right here, and then we get a cutout of the Ossiarch Empire, which is kind of this section here, and you can see these are the lands that the Ossiarchs kind of conquered, and this is kind of where they came from. This is where they harvest bones from. What's really cool too is you see these giant kind of spines coming out. Those are actually bone constructs used by the Ossiarch Empire to cross the seas. So they don't cross on boats; they march across on these giant skeletal bridges, which is pretty creepy and cool. Here we get a quick breakdown of the structure, power structure. Obviously, Nagash is up top. Arkham the Black is kind of second in command, and then we get into they have this symbol here, which is actually the royal cartouche for all of the Mortarchs, which is also the rank that Catacross is. And then we get into the other guys that are below him. You can see all the different cartouches, their symbols, which is pretty cool. Kind of shows their system. They have a caste system, and if you actually are in as part of the caste system and you fail your job miserably, you do get exiled. So you serve Nagash at some point. Then we go over the 6 different legions of the Ossiarch Bonereapers. I'm not going to go over this section, but each legion does have their own background and history. They're all actually really interesting. And they all have different fighting styles and stuff like that. Highly recommend checking this stuff out. We get to revisit Nagash. We get to revisit Arkham the Black. They are actually part of the army. They're actually in this book as well. They're new War Scrolls, slightly updated and tweaked. While strangely enough, while their War Scrolls don't have Ossiarch Bonereapers on them in the page we'll get to, they still get the Ossiarch Bonereaper keyword later added based on the army. So it's just kind of this weird thing. Here we have Catacross. Again, more info on him. Kind of breaks down some more info. And then it goes over all the different units. We're not going to go through this, but you get to meet other characters like Arch Cavalos Xantos, who is like a firebrand. Also really all about hard work. And he hates the living. He hated the fact that Sigmar started to transplant living people into the realm of death. He's kind of like, why are the living in the realm of the dead? They need to get out. And he actually semi-successful in his campaign against the living, and then he got recruited. So then we also have Vok Mortian, who's the master of the Bone Tithe. This is the character you saw in a lot of the videos. He's walking around. He has this neat thing on his chest that's actually supposed to be the face of Nagash. So when he goes to a town and they're like, we don't want to pay the tithe, then this projection of Nagash comes out and scares the crap out of people. And if that doesn't convince them to pay the tithe, then they're utterly destroyed. That's pretty much it for the characters. We do get to meet some of the other heroes. The Liege Cavalos, which are just like the generic kind of cavalry commander guys. We get the Bone Shapers, we get the Soul Reapers, and the Soul Masons, and those are the ones that kind of repair and do magic and stuff like that. We meet the Mortek Guard, who are not mindless automatons. They are actually thinking and feeling to a certain extent. They have what free will Nagash has given them, so they can think on their feet. They don't need a direct battlefield commander to give them orders. They have, characters in their unit. The in the Mortek Guard, the Hekatos that can lead, kind of like a lieutenant, squad leader, sergeant type. So you can give them general orders. Take this point, hold this point, fortify this location, and leave and come back, and they'll have done their job. Then we also get to revisit the Morghast, which were kind of the first parts of this army, way back from the end times. We meet the Cavalos Death Riders, again, really hardcore infantry unit, cavalry unit. They're really sweet. And then we see all of the kind of the war giants, like the Immortus Guard, the Necropolis Stalkers. We see the Mortek Crawlers, which are those crazy soul-launching catapults. The Gothazar Harvesters, which can regenerate units with as it wanders the battlefield and gathers bones to regen units and stuff like that. Here's another shot of that crazy wall that I was talking about. Again, waiting for that kit. This is just the paint section. Kind of goes over all the different models, what they all look like. Again, Arkham the Black and Nagash are in this book, featured prevalently. So, moving to here, all this cool stuff. And then we get into their rules, and there's the paint section here. I do want to stop real quick and talk about their allegiance abilities. This is kind of a big deal. Like I said earlier, they play with the same rules, but not quite as everybody else. So we'll go through this real fast. Lords of the Ossiarch Empire, that's if you take Nagash and Arkan, they actually gain those rules. They gain the Ossiarch Bonereapers keywords. The Ossiarch Bonereaper Legions, if you want, you don't have to, but if you want, you can take one of the 6 special legions. You gain that keyword for your army and their special rules, which do override a couple of things like the First Relic and the Warlord trait for your general. You have to pick the specific one from their legion first. Deathless Warriors, if you are within 6 inches of a Hekatos, or you have the Hekatos keyword, or you have friendly Mortek Hekatos, or you're wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers hero, you ignore wounds on a 6. This is similar to the Night Haunt rule, which is kind of cool. Ranks Unbroken by Descent. This is the special section. It's a big chunk of rules, essentially saying this: Ossiarch Bonereapers do not use command points. They have their own version of command points called Relentless Discipline. These points are generated at the start of every battle round, they start. You generate them by your heroes each generate 1. Liege characters generate a second one. If you take Catacross, he generates 3. And then you roll for each unit. You get 1 for each battalion you take. There's a couple other ways to get them. So you generate these battle points at the start of every round, these Relentless Discipline points, and then you can spend them on the command abilities. So that's the way this army functions. It doesn't use command abilities like other armies. You get a pool at the start of every round that you can spend to do stuff. These special abilities are command abilities. So just very different but very similar rules. And they go away at the end of every round. So any unspent points go away. It resets down to 0. And then you regen them all back, or however many that you get on the rolls here. The next thing up is you get Unstoppable Advance, which this actually changes the game for me too, because you look at the movement stats and they don't look super fast, but this ability right here allows you to basically make a unit get extra 3 to their move, which is kind of a big deal when you're only moving 4 inches base. So you go from moving 4 inches to 7 inches for your basic infantry. Some of your other guys that are moving at speed 6 can go 9. Your cavalry that starts at speed 12 is now going 15. And yeah, you get the idea there. Artifacts and command traits are up next. We're not going to cover these, but you can see them here on your screen. You get 2 sets of command traits. You get 2 sets of artifacts power, although you only get 3 for the Morsian Bone Shapers. Excuse me. You also get Morsian Soul Mason and Soul Reaper weapon. So 3 of those, 3 of those. So in total, 6 generic powers, and then 3, 3, and 3. So quite a few from there. The spell lores, quick caveat too, if you take Nagash or Arkan, they know all these powers, so even better for all you fans of Nagash out there. And then we go over the special rules. GW kind of preview these, so we're not going to show those off, but you get all 6 of those rule sets to go through. We get a look at their Bone Tithe Nexus. This is a terrain piece that if you are using a Ossiarch Bonereapers army, you can actually take this for free. It costs 0 points. I highly recommend bringing one for 2 reasons. 1, they look awesome, and they're big. 2, they have these crazy rules. So once per turn, you can choose one of these things to go off. So Deadly Gaze, you pick one of these features, and you can do stuff like 4 up, you take a mortal wound, or 2 up, it's a mortal wound at 36 inches. This one is 4 up, subtract 1 from hit rolls. You can slow people down. It's very useful. There's a special mission if you want to play that one where the enemy has to destroy the Bone Tithe Nexus. So that's a cool battle plan. We've got Path to Glory stuff in here too for you, if that's your thing, which is pretty cool. You get the big war scrolls again with the different battalions that you can use. The battalions are okay. I wasn't super impressed. Wasn't blown away by them, but I could totally see myself using a couple of them. So take that for what it's worth. This army's already kind of expensive in terms of points, so spending points on a battalion, you better make sure it's worth it. Catacross has a crazy war scroll. I'm not going to go over it here in the video. You can actually go onto their app, the Games Workshop battle app here for you. You can actually pull this up yourself. You can go on their website once the miniature is available and check it out too, but you can kind of see it here. He's got a bunch of rules. Nagash, also slight tweaks to his rules compared to, say, the Legions of Nagash book, which I actually have right here. And just real quick, the biggest change from this version of Nagash from the old version, other than points, he did get a slight points tweak. His name changed. Not that it matters too much, because he's unique and you can't use this guy anyway, but his ability to know all the spells that other Death Wizards know is gone from here in this version. So this version doesn't have that ability, but he knows all the other spells anyway. So and he still can do crazy stuff. He can still cast up to 8 spells a turn and things like that. So pretty cool stuff. Arkham the Black, similar thing, doesn't share spells anymore, but knows a bunch anyway. And he still gets to add 6 inches to the range for wizards nearby. So pretty cool stuff. Both of them are really powerful. One of the unique things about taking Nagash is he does have the command ability that allows you to reroll 1s for your armor saves. That's kind of a big deal if you want to run. Where are they at? The Petrifix Elite, which gives you +1 saves. Add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target Petrifix Elite units. So he's like the only way to get like a 2-up with a reroll. If you do that though, you're spending a lot of points to do it. So yeah. Other than that, you get all the different units in here. Again, these units you can find online. I'm not going to go over them. I really like the Mortar Crawler. It's got a lot of stuff. 3 different attack modes. The 2 attacks, other than the Necrotic Skulls, can only be used once per game, but they're pretty powerful. And you also get your 3 unique Endless Spells, which are actually soul-linked, and they worked a little different. You can have these out, but only the soul-linked wizard, that basically the person that casts the spells, can move them during the hero phase. So unlike predatory spells, you still gain control of them, which is kind of cool. And then of course the points are in the back of the book too. So go check that out. But yeah, that is the Ossiarch Bonereapers. I am super jazzed about this book. Can't wait to get this army on the table. I'm running out of breath because I'm talking so much. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm AdamHarry from BoLS. Thanks for watching. Click to subscribe. Check out more videos. And thanks for watching.